All right. We are doing pretty well. We are only an hour behind schedule, so I think that's doing pretty well, considering the amount of information that we covered and have to cover. I'm going to try to keep up my pace so that we can formally finish at 6 o'clock, because there are probably people that have got to leave. But once we get to 6 o'clock, we'll take a break, and then we will just continue and go into... If you have questions that you want to talk about something more in depth, let me know, and I will certainly do that. Page 22. I figured by this time the seriousness factor is a little bit high, and so I've attempted to interject a little bit of humor for comic relief. I have inserted something called a Bill of No Rights, which I've downloaded off the internet, and you've got a website there. I am not responsible for it. I only wish that I were. But the preamble to this Bill of No Rights says, "We, the sensible of the United States, in an attempt to help everyone get along, restore some semblance of justice, avoid any more riots, keep our nation safe, promote positive behavior, and secure the blessings of debt-free liberty to ourselves and our great-great-great-great-grandchildren, hereby try one more time to ordain and establish some common sense guidelines for the terminally whiny, guilt-ridden, delusional, and other liberal, commie, pinko bedwetters." And so it goes on to say what you do not have a right to. You do not have a right to be free from harm. If you stick a screwdriver in your eye, learn to be more careful. Okay? Do not expect the tool manufacturer to make you and all of your relatives independently wealthy, etc. So you can read that. I think that it's very humorous, and sadly enough, you probably ought to post that for some people. You know. Now, the first 10 amendments are special. They identify unalienable rights, and although Congress may go through the motion of amending them or eliminating them, they may as well just go ahead and shred the whole Bill of Rights. They can do that too, but it doesn't make it valid. Now, there are several additional amendments. The 11th Amendment basically, the U.S. judicial power is denied in cases against the state, so that states have a little bit more difficulty suing each other. We looked at Article 2 that said the vice president is the guy with the second greatest number of votes. That was changed in 1804 by the 12th Amendment. Now, if you want to find out more about the Electoral College, go to the 12th Amendment. It's a relatively long one. It has a lot of details about who can vote for what and all that other stuff. So that is the process being used today. Now, the 13th Amendment is a little bit more confusing. Depends on which 13th Amendment we are talking about. Now, you and I know about the 13th Amendment that says no slavery. Okay? That was established right after the war between the states. Now, it turns out that there was another 13th Amendment. Now, after George Washington was president, John Adams became president. While John Adams was president, the U.S. Congress secretly voted to give England about 60 or 600,000 pounds of gold. Now, I don't know if that was physical pounds or British sterling pounds, but it was a lot of gold. I thought, we won the Revolutionary War. Why are we paying England all this gold? Why are Congress giving all this money in secret? Well, Benjamin Franklin's grandson happened to be a reporter. He found out about it, and he printed the story. What do you think the people at large thought about that? Were they happy? No, I think they had Pennsylvania Avenue filled with torches and pitchforks. They were a little bit upset and they wanted to, dangle a couple of these congressmen from a long rope. Well, John Adams said, well, we can't have that, and John Adams helped to pass the Alien and Sedition Act. Anybody ever heard of the Alien and Sedition Act? The Alien and Sedition Act made it illegal to print nasty stuff about Congress, even if it's true. Don't you know? This is the second president of the United States. We haven't even gotten started yet, and they're already putting up the Alien and Sedition Act. Well, Thomas Jefferson was our third president. Thomas Jefferson's first formal action was to eliminate the Alien and Sedition Act. You can't have freedom of speech and the Alien and Sedition Act. It's one or the other. And so he got rid of the Alien and Sedition Act. Now, they were starting to realize that Congress was being infiltrated by a bunch of lawyers. What does BAR stand for? When you take the BAR exam, what does BAR stand for?
British Accreditation Registry.
British Accreditation Registry. British Accreditation Registry? So these are the King's men? And when you become a lawyer, you get to put Esquire after your name. It's a title of nobility. Well, the Founding Fathers that were still around went, wait a minute, we got to put a stop to this. And they did the Titles of Nobility Amendment. And I won't read it in its entirety, but it is on page 23. And it basically says that anybody who has a title of nobility is not a citizen of the United States, which is basically state citizen, and that means that you can't be in Congress, because that's a mere prerequisite. So the title of nobility amendment would basically make it illegal for lawyers to be in Congress. Think about it. How many of our congressmen are lawyers?
How many are not?
Almost, yeah, how many are not? We can count those on one or two hands. So, the title of nobility amendment was being ratified. And at the time, they would need 13 states to ratify it. 10 of the states ratified. They wrote in and said, yes, we vote for that. Then, the War of 1812 broke out. Who were we fighting in the War of 1812? England. You know, the Revolutionary War wasn't good enough. They got to come back. Well, what happened during the War of 1812? They burned down the White House, where all of the records are kept. Son of a gun. There's a lot of strong evidence that leads to imply that the War of 1812 was specifically to prevent this 13th Amendment from being ratified. So now the War of 1812 is over. Congress gets back. Okay, where were we before we were so rudely interrupted? Oh yeah, we had this amendment. And 3 states didn't show up. You know, we didn't get their answer. Let's go get it now. So they write a letter to the president, say, go out and find out what those 3 states said. There is documented proof that the president of the United States wrote and said, what was your answer? Now, there is no evidence that the states wrote back. However, because the states were now subordinate to the supreme law of the land, every time the state would print the state laws, it seemed like a good idea to print the Constitution at the front page. That was the supreme law. All the state laws follow it. Now you have 2 guys out in Maine, and they just do this research. They're looking through all these old books. If you like that kind of stuff, fine. Now, when they take a coffee break, imagine them going, I wonder what the oldest book in the library is. And so they go through, running through all the shelves, and they find this old book, and they slide it off the shelf, and it's got all the dust, and they blow it off, and here's the Constitution. You got the Bill of Rights, and the 11th, 12th, and 13th Amendment. That doesn't look like no slavery. It looks like no titles of nobility. We'd never heard of that before. So they started doing research, and they found out that the title of nobility amendment was printed no less than 47 times between 1820 and 1860. Why would they print the title of nobility amendment if it hadn't been ratified? Now, all of a sudden we get to 1860. What happened in 1860? Civil War. Son of a gun. And all of a sudden, Title of Nobility Amendment is no longer printed. They just what? Erased it? How do you get rid of an amendment? With another amendment. Do you know of an amendment that gets rid of the Titles of Nobility Amendment? No. So, if it was properly ratified, it's still in effect. And if it wasn't properly ratified, we can finish it. Imagine what would happen if we ratify the Title of Nobility Amendment. Now, we could all go to Washington, D.C., wave bye-bye to all the lawyers. Wouldn't that be great? So, now, I'm not saying whether the Titles of Nobility Amendment was properly ratified. I wasn't there. But I've given you two websites. Well, first of all, a little paragraph that says, yes, the Titles of Nobility Amendment was properly ratified, and another paragraph that suggests, well, maybe it wasn't. Trying to be open-minded here. And then in back, I've got several websites that will determine what page is that on. On page 51, I point you to 3 different websites that you can go to and research it on your own. Let me tell you in advance that one of the websites shows you photographs of this amendment printed in the books. I don't know, looks pretty convincing to me. Now, so eventually, Civil War, we just forget about Titles of Nobility. Now we've got the 13th Amendment. 13th Amendment says no slavery. So, great, whites and blacks are the same, right? No, we've now got to pass the 14th Amendment that creates U.S. citizens and gives blacks privileges. Privileges and rights are not the same thing. 14th Amendment was also not properly ratified. Oh, by the way. 15th Amendment, we finally give blacks suffrage. What is suffrage? The ability to vote. Right? When did women get suffrage? 1920. So girls, now you know how you rate relative to slaves.
Well, if we own property, we were able to vote, though.
Okay? So basically, you know, it's all landowners, and there were some women who were landowners, but not many.
It took 40 years.
Right.
Had to keep it in place.
You know, I guess that means that slaves are worth more because you actually have to buy a slave. You know, you just got to get married and have her do all your laundry.
You gotta
And
buy a
cooking.
wife. Have you ever seen what the price of dating is?
Oh. Okay, so women were allowed to vote with the 19th Amendment. The 16th Amendment. 16th Amendment is also pretty controversial. It says that the U.S. can tax on income from any source derived. So if income is derived from source, then income and source are two different things. Even if we don't know what they are, an income is not a source. An income is derived from source. So what is a source? Well, we don't really get into that. The 16th Amendment was also not properly ratified. And Bill Benson's got a book, you probably all have read it, The Law That Never Was. The 17th Amendment changed the way that we elect our senators. Prior to the 17th Amendment, the senators were elected by the state legislation, so that the state had some control over what happens in Washington. 17th Amendment allows us to elect our senators by popular vote. What does that move the United States towards? Democracy.
Not properly ratified.
So, ever since the Civil War, things in Washington, D.C. have been happening fast and loose, and they just say, oh, don't worry about it. Don't look at that man behind the curtain. Just trust us. Would we lie? We're Federalists. They're the anti-Federalists. We wouldn't lie. So, the 18th Amendment is when Prohibition started. What were we prohibiting?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Okay? Now, the 18th Amendment is unique because it's the only one that's ever been repealed. It was repealed by the 21st Amendment. Okay? It was repealed in 1933. Everybody heard of the Budweiser Clydesdales? They were a celebration for the end of Prohibition. We were so glad that alcohol wasn't illegal anymore that Anheuser-Busch built this great big wagon to celebrate. Well, it was such a popular hit that they've just kept it as their symbol ever since. So if anybody, if you ever see the Budweiser Clydesdales, you can say, well, that's been around since 1933 with the repeal of Prohibition. Now, yeah, the way that I remember that is that when I was growing up, some states you had to be 18 in order to drink, and in other states you had to be 21. So the 18th Amendment started Prohibition, and the 21st Amendment repeals it. The 22nd Amendment, a president is limited to 2 terms in office. Why did that happen? Roosevelt. We were a little bit concerned that we might get an elected monarch. And so we basically said, 2 turns at bat and you're out of there. 23rd gives District of Columbia electors as though it were a state. Why do we want to do that?
I don't know.
How do we go back and undo that? Washington, D.C. is a federal territory. Why should we give that federal territory any more power than it already has? Do you see a habit or a pattern here? 24th, elimination of the poll tax. We were going to allow blacks to vote. We're just going to charge them so much money they couldn't. 25 is a formal procedure for overthrowing the president. After I memorize the Bill of Rights, that's the next one that I memorize. I want to know how to overthrow the president. 26, 18-year-olds can vote even though they still can't think. What difference does it make? It doesn't count anyway. We're just going to let you pull a lever. Drive that little plastic steering wheel. Now, when was the last time we amended the Constitution? 1992. How many people were alive in 1992? How many people were sat up all night on television watching all this stuff go back and forth, listening to all the debates? You didn't even know it happened. You mean that they are going to amend the Constitution of the United States, the supreme law of the land, and you didn't even know it? Neither did I. How did they slip this past us? How can we, the people, be responsible for Congress if we don't even know that they're modifying the Constitution? 1992. That's not even 10 years ago yet.
They know we're asleep.
They know that we're asleep. It's like, ding, 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 ding. Somebody better wake up. And it better be us. Any questions on the other amendments?
Why'd you use A and C for the titles of nobility?
Because there was another 13th Amendment.
There was a B?
There was a 13B that somebody said, okay, we're going to propose this, and then it just never happened. It was just before the Civil War, and it got shut down.
That was the one that Lincoln put through to justify slavery in certain states.
Right.
To keep the Union together.
Yeah, and it failed. So we've actually had 3 13th Amendments. Okay, now we're going to talk about the real heart of the problem. I mean, Congress is bad, and the United States is in deep trouble. But I'm not going to point my finger just at Congress. We have the best money that Congress can buy. Sigh. We're legal tender and lawful money. And what is the difference? The real problem is the economy. That's how the Constitution got started. They sent our guys to Philadelphia because the economy was bad. They were suffering from inflation. Some things, just never change. Now, let's talk about gold and silver. Why are gold and silver used as money? Around the world, not just in the United States.
They're valuable.
They are valuable. They have an intrinsic value. If you don't like coins, you can melt this down and make silverware.
They don't rust and rot.
That's where the term came from. Now, not everybody had silverware because silver is, kind of hard to come by. But, if you don't like it in this form, you can melt it and change it into something else. It has intrinsic value. All right? Why else do we use silver and gold?
Constitution, so states.
Well, it was put into the
A small amount
Constitution.
of it, especially with gold, can equal a fair amount.
Right. So gold is very, very valuable. Why is it so valuable?
No free electrons, it won't oxidize.
It won't oxidize.
It's a
Right.
limited amount.
How much gold is there?
There's a limited amount.
There's a limited amount. Can gold inflate? Can we just go out and just, start spitting out more gold? No. If you want more gold, what do you have to do? You got to go and dig it up. And it's hard work. And so you can spend, 10 or 15 years of your life and end up with this little ball of gold. Okay, you worked hard for it. You deserve it. Is it that ounce of gold going to inflate the economy? No. So the fact that there is a limited amount of gold and silver is a primary reason that countries all over use this as a medium of exchange. Now, when they had these goldsmiths, what you would do is, you want to buy my apple. You give me this, this gold coin. Well, there is one disadvantage to gold and silver.
10,000 apples.
You try carrying this around in your pocket. If I don't have a belt on, I'm gonna lose my shorts. It's heavy. And not only that, if I'm walking around and this stuff is jingling around, everybody knows I've got it. And they can either cut my throat or cut my purse, and take it from me. So it does have a disadvantage. So one of the things that we used to do is take your money to the goldsmith. One, he would punch it into coins for you and make them all the same. And then he also had a great big lockbox. So you can say, well, I want to just leave my gold here where it's safe. And the goldsmith would give you a receipt for it. Kind of like Chinese laundry. You bring back the receipt, we'll give you your gold. No ticky, no washi. So we get your receipt. So now I want to buy your apple. I can say, don't go away. And I can run down to the goldsmith, give him my receipt, get the gold, come back and say, okay, here's the gold, you give me the apple. Well, what are you going to do with it? You don't want to keep it around, so you run down and give it to the goldsmith, and he gives you the receipt. Well, gosh, that's a whole lot of running around. If I've already got my gold receipt, can I give you the gold receipt? You give me the apple? Yeah, you're going to end up with it in 5 minutes anyway. It's a lot easier to carry paper. You just put it in your pocket or your wallet. It doesn't weigh as much, and it works the same way. You want the gold, you can go and pick it up. Now, the guy who's holding all the gold goes, wow, this is a real bummer. I've got 1,000 gold coins, and people only come in and collect like 100 of them at any one time. So only about 10% of the people who have gold here ever ask for it back. Everybody's using these gold receipts. Now, because I'm not terribly scrupulous, well, how can I take advantage of that? I can print more gold receipts. Yeah, but if I spend them, everybody's going to say, hey, Jack, how come you got all this money? Where are you getting all that? So I really can't spend it myself, but I can sure loan it to you. Nobody's going to ask you. If they say, where'd you come up with that money? I borrowed it from the goldsmith. So, that's like cool. So if I only have 10% of the people collecting their money, and I have 1,000 coins, I can print 10,000 notes. So I can print all these counterfeit gold receipts. And I can loan them to you and loan them to you and loan them to you. And now everybody's using the gold receipts. You can't tell them from the original ones because I printed the original ones. And now 10% of those people, 10% of the $10,000 are going to come in and collect their gold. And I've got the 1,000 pieces of gold that I need. That's how fractional reserve banking got started. I'm basically counterfeiting money legally. So now, and this is a really great setup. I can counterfeit this money, I can loan it to you, and now when you borrow money from me, you've got to pay me back in interest. And I'm going to ask for the interest in gold. So I don't know where you're going to come up with it, but you're going to go out and bring back more gold. So if I've got more gold, I can print 10 times as much money. For every gold coin you print me, I can print 10 certificates and loan that out. It doesn't take an idiot to figure out that I'm going to be making money pretty much hand over fist here pretty soon. Now, I've got almost the perfect setup. Almost perfect because, you don't borrow enough money. I mean, you're a nice guy, but, you only borrowed maybe $5,000. And you're going to do that once because you want to buy a house. If I want to make more money, I got to figure out a way to loan more money. Who can I go to that will borrow money from me? Can I loan money to a government? Will governments borrow money? Yeah. And they borrow lots of money. Especially if somebody's about to attack. If your country is going to war, don't you want to borrow money so you can buy guns and defend yourself? I mean, and if you're going to borrow money now, aren't you willing to borrow that money at like a really high interest rate? The goldsmith says, yeah, I can loan you the money, but it's going to be 25 or 30%. The bad guys are coming. I need the guns today. I can't work. If you don't give me the money, I'm not going to have anything to defend. So yeah, I'll borrow the money. I'll give you your 30%. Ha ha! I've got the perfect solution. Except, you're battling this guy over here. So I've loaned you money. I'll go over here. You want to borrow money? I mean, you're fighting against this lady over here. You don't want her to win. I can loan you money too. So now I'm playing both ends against the middle. I'm loaning you money at 30%. I'm loaning you money at 35% because I'm not giving you very many chances. And I've got the two of you fighting. You're both borrowing lots of money. I'm making money hand over fist. This is good. What's the only bad news that I could ever get? The two of you shook hands and decided not to be at war anymore. Oh my gosh, you can't have that. If you stop the war, you're going to stop borrowing money. This sounds like wild, crazy, That's exactly what's going on. When Napoleon was exiled, they put him off in Elba, hoping he'll never come back. What do you think the bankers did? Hey, Napoleon, you want to come back and kick some butt? Why do you think we had the Louisiana Purchase? Because Napoleon needed money. He said, yeah, I'll give you that entire Louisiana Purchase. You can have all of France's land. I need money because I got to come back and kick some butt. And he was also borrowing money from the bankers. So we got here, we are the United States. We are printing our own money. Oh my gosh, we can't have any of that. We don't have any control. If you're making your own money, how can we loan you money? So all through the history of the United States, they've been trying to set up a central bank. Alexander Hamilton was the guy who was trying to get it started. And he did. They called it the first Bank of the United States. And then the contract ran out. And so they brought it back again, and they called it the first Bank of the United States. And then this time they called it the second Bank of the United States. So we've had, a central bank several times. Well, Old Hickory, what's his name? Andrew Jackson said, you guys are a den of vipers, and by the strength of God, I'll rout you out. And he threw out all the central bankers, and he killed the central bank for about 75 years. He did a good job of it. Not a perfect job, But back in 1913, the central bank came back. What do we call it? Federal Reserve. So they print money out of thin air. You've heard the joke about the woman goes into the bank and says, I can't be overdrawn. I still have checks left. You know, that may be cute, but that's what the Federal Reserve is doing. Prior to 1913, how did Congress get money? They have to beg. They have to come to us and say, we were going to have this big scientific, we need $1 million to study the sex life of the mosquito. What did we say? I don't think so. Like, oh darn. You know, we can't do our pet little project. So then they invent the Federal Reserve Bank. Congress is authorized to coin money and regulate the value thereof. They are not authorized to give that power to somebody else. If I'm a police officer, can I give you my gun and say, would you direct traffic for me while I go to lunch? Can I give you that authority? No, because I can't give you the responsibility that goes with it. We give Congress the responsibility to coin money. We did not give them the authority to give it to somebody else. But they did. Federal Reserve Act is completely, totally, 100% unconstitutional. I don't care how much, it depends on what your definition of is, the president does. It's unconstitutional. So now we've got the Federal Reserve Bank printing money out of thin air. What does Congress do? They borrow money from the Federal Reserve. Did they ask us? No. They just borrow the money. They do their, study on the sex life of the mosquito, and then they turn around to us and go, oh gosh, we've got a national debt. You got to pay taxes. We got to pay our national debt. Wait a minute. They were supposed to ask us before. Now they've invented a system where they can get the money without asking. It is criminal. It is treason.
Treason.
Absolutely treason. Anybody here still think that the government is out to for your best interest? I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Oh yeah? Stand still. Now, one of my favorite quotes is from Ludwig von Mises. Ludwig von Mises says on page 24, the government is the only institution that can take a valuable commodity like paper and make it absolutely worthless by printing on it. Think about it. If you'd given me scrap paper, I could use it for something, but now that you turned it into money, it has no value. Now, money is defined by Black's Law Dictionary. In usual and ordinary acceptation, it means coins and paper currency used as a circulating medium of exchange and does not embrace notes or IOUs, evidence of debt or other personal or real estate. A note is an instrument containing an express and absolute promise of signer to pay a specified person or order. It's a promise to pay. Now, when we started this class, you gave me silver, I gave you a book. That is quid pro quo, Latin for something for something. We do an exchange. So once I've given you something, you've given me something. Once we've done this trade, the transaction is over with. I'm happy, you're happy, leave me alone. Now, if you say, gosh, I'd really like to have that apple, and I say, well, okay, it's $1. You say, well, I don't have $1, I've got an IOU. If I give you the apple and you give me the IOU, have we finished the transaction? No. Now, somebody's got a banana, and I want to buy the banana. And they say, well, it's $1. They say, well, instead of $1, I've got this IOU from so-and-so. Would you take my IOU? You go, yeah, okay, I'll take that. And I give the IOU and I take the banana. Have we finished the transaction? No, somebody still owes this guy $1. Somebody is still stuck. That's what a note is. At the top of the dollar, it says Federal Reserve Note. These are official IOUs that are absolutely, totally worthless. Now, they are not the same as this. This is a silver certificate. At the top, it says silver certificate. And at the bottom, it says $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. So you could used to be able to take one of these into the bank, and they would give you silver. And I'm not talking about the bus tokens that we use. I mean, if you listen to these things drop on the floor, they sound hollow. Doesn't sound anything like silver. So, basically, this is real money because it can be converted into gold or silver. This is a Federal Reserve note, and it happens to be worth whatever Alan Greenspan says it's worth. It is fiat paper. Now, what I want to do, has anybody not seen silver certificates? I'm willing to pass these around.
You're young.
I want them back.
Are they just a collector's item, or are they still considered? I mean,
No,
this will
no, you-
always be legal tender, right?
You can spend that.
Like it's $1.
Yeah, you could spend it like it's $1, but it's worth a whole lot more. I mean, I've got those in plastic. I won't spend it, and I'll give you dollars, but I want that one back.
No, I know. I meant legally, can it be?
Yes, legally you can spend it. Now you're not going to find those in circulation because there are a couple 100,000 of us that know the difference, and we'll snatch those out of circulation faster. You know,
On a $2 bill, it doesn't say either.
what's that?
$2 bill. It doesn't say silver certificate or.
Right. I have to check I have a $2 note. I haven't checked that.
There were some older $2 bills.
Right.
A long time ago.
Okay. Now,
It might be the one Kennedy issued.
That's in your.
okay. Now, negotiable.
I'll give you $2,000 for that.
$2,000 for what? What is
For
that?
one of your silver certificates.
Oh,
$2,000 bill.
yeah.
Well, we won't take that. How about this million?
Yeah. Now, negotiable means that we can negotiate about it. If I've got a pile of silver and you've got something that you're going to say, well, how much is it? And we can negotiate. Okay? You can decide whether you want to take it or not. Non-negotiable means you don't have a choice. It cannot be transferred. Not capable of passing title or property by endorsement or delivery. This was the question that you had earlier. If I take your apple and I give you this silver, I'm basically transferring property. This is now your property. The note cannot transfer property. It's just an instrument of debt. It's basically a tally system. You do not own this dollar, even if it's in your wallet. Who owns this dollar?
Federal Reserve.
The Federal Reserve. It's got a serial number on it and everything. So this is their money. If you go to Avis and you want to borrow one of their cars, you take their car, drive it around for a week, fill it up with gas, bring it back. It's still their car. They're going to charge you money for borrowing it? Yes, that's known as an excise. Rent on the car. The 16th Amendment, the Supreme Court has determined that the 16th Amendment confers no new power of taxation on the Congress. Congress can't do anything now that it couldn't already do before the 16th Amendment. The Supreme Court says all the 16th Amendment does is to establish the income tax as an excise, which means that you are paying rent for using their property. It's like going to Avis. Did you transact business using these? Yes. Well, you got to pay rent and all the paper dollars that you handled. Why do people use the Federal Reserve notes?
Don't have much choice.
There's no other choice. It's like Henry Ford. You can have your car any color you want as long as it's black. If you have a choice of one, is it a choice? No. So, what do we need? We need some options. So instead of using this, we can use this. This is American Liberty currency, minted by an organization called NORFED, N-O-R-F-E-D, the National Organization for the Repeal of the Federal Reserve. So not only, if you don't want to carry the silver in your pocket, you can carry silver certificates. This is a certificate. It's a warehouse receipt. So if you have this in your possession, you can go in, and for every one of these, they will trade you one of these. This is just a placeholder. Put it in your pocket, just like the goldsmith. Use this instead of that. But if you want this, you can go and pick it up, because they don't print one of these unless they have one of these in circulation or stored in a warehouse someplace. Now you have a choice. You don't have to use these. Now, if somebody buys something and they give you this, technically you're obligated to take it. It's not negotiable. This is negotiable.
How long have those been out?
These have been out for 3 years. There's already $1 million like this in circulation.
See, being in business, I never knew that. I wouldn't have known
Okay.
if somebody came in and gave me.
And that's why I'm here to educate you. Okay? It is an option. And every time we use these, we don't have to pay rent on the other guy's stuff.
Does it come in every now?
This comes in 1, 5, and 10s. And they're different sizes, so that when you stack them, all the 1s are shorter, the 5s, it's really cool stuff. Gosh, I love it.
Lighter than $1? It looks
I can pass this stuff around.
Depends on how much it's
Where
for,
can
I
we get
guess.
I mean,
Yeah, where can we get it?
Norfed,
Okay? One of the places that you can get it is from me. I am a redemption center for NORFED. You can go to norfed.org and you can buy it off the internet. And basically, in the back of your book, in the handouts, it is like the second or third item. Okay? I've got a little flyer for the NORFED, and it explains what it is, what it looks like. It is perfectly legal. We are not violating any laws. So for those of you that don't want to go to jail for not having a driver's license, or go to jail for not paying your taxes, this is something that you can do, which is non-threatening, it's not legal, and you are helping to restore the Republic.
You said it's not legal.
It is legal. It is legal. It's not illegal. It's not illegal.
do the merchants accept it?
Some do, some
You can
don't.
negotiate. Now, if a merchant will accept it, they can put a little silver tag. You know how you got American Express, MasterCard, Visa labels on the door? We've got another silver label about the same size that says ALC, American Liberty Currency. And we've got 3 or 4 places in Austin that will accept it.
Yeah, they give you a catalog that tells you what merchants,
Right.
what redemption centers are.
So if you are a business, talk to me. I'll give you a silver silver label. You put that on your door, and you're helping us. Now, what do you do when you get it? 2 things. Give it out to people as change. Gosh, what's this? Spend 5 minutes, tell them what it is. Okay, tell them it's silver. In fact, these spend real easy.
0.999 pure.
Man, you go into Taco Bell with this, and they go, "Wow, what is that?"
It's $20.
It's silver. Is it like, do you take silver? It's like, wow. And frequently what they'll do is they'll put this in their pocket and put $10 of their money in the thing. I went into McDonald's one time, sold 1 to the guy behind the cash register and 4 to the people after me. They go, wow, what is that? I mean, I had to go out to the car to get more silver. Okay? People know value when they see it. And when you start using this instead of that phony money, not only are you helping to recover, our economy, but you're helping to restore the republic. And it's only been around for 3 years yet. As more and more people learn about it, it's going to help. And I'll talk to you some more about that same organization.
Did you bring a lot with you? Did you bring a lot of it with you?
Yes, it did.
In essence, if the Federal Reserve, if we use their note, do they, in essence, own our property that we buy with that?
No, that is not true.
Even though it was not a completed...
But it isn't a completed transaction.
We
the-
have the computer.
The thing is, they don't own it, but neither do you.
Your grandchildren own it.
Right. It's a real strange and bizarre thing.
Hey, this Norfed Redemption Center, is it a bank?
No, that's me.
Oh, that's you.
That's me.
Oh, so I said
That's-
to Tina, I said, we can go right there and get it.
That's me. And we have 9 redemption centers in Austin already.
There's 4 or 5 in Houston, too.
3 years ago, they had 20 redemption centers. 2 years ago, they were up to about 100. Today, we have about 1,200. Norfed is growing exponentially. You tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends, and so on, and it won't be long, before everybody knows about Norfed.
Isn't it interesting, though, that they're taking the Federal Reserve notes to get the gold and silver?
Well, that's cool. You give me worthless Federal Reserve notes, and I'll give you valuable silver. Yeah? Why would you do that? What are you going to do with the Federal Reserve notes? We're going to give it back and buy more silver.
That's right, I didn't mean
It's
to
like great, It's like, it still works. The more silver we get into circulation like that, the better we're off.
It'd be to everybody's benefit, everybody.
Yes.
Get the silver, and it's
Yes.
going to be a conversation piece when they give it out, and then
Okay?
I have a question. Have these notes ever been counterfeited?
They cannot be counterfeited.
They cannot. Well, that's great.
They literally cannot be counterfeited. They have so much, they've got all sorts of fine print. I can barely see the line. If you look right at the top, it has a line on it. That is the Pledge of Allegiance, the Bill of Rights, the preamble to the Constitution. And I went, yeah, right. And I gave it to an Australian girl, and she started reading it.
Oh.
And I know she doesn't know the Pledge of Allegiance to the Bill of Rights. I know it. And it's like, wow, that really is there. And it also has a DNA coding. So when you have one of these, we can check it against that DNA coding to find out if it is really, what it,
Are you saying
You really
coding COD or coding COAT?
COAT.
Okay.
Well, both.
Well,
Now, the Federal Reserve Bank started in 1913, the same year that the 16th Amendment was purportedly ratified, and the same year that the IRS came into existence. What a coincidence. I've always been so amazed that all of the famous holidays, what are the chances of that? So, now, let's talk a little bit about economy. All you need to know about economy is the law of supply and demand. If there's a lot of it, the price is going to be really cheap. How much are you going to spend for cow patties? Probably not a whole lot. If I want some, I'll just go out back to the back 40 and pick some up. Gold, how much is that worth? Well, a lot, because there isn't very much around. Now, the same thing is true about peaches. If I'm a peach farmer and I got 1 million peaches, and I sell my 1 million peaches this year, let's say I sell them at 25 cents a piece. Next year, I try to grow peaches and I've got rain and frost and all sorts of weather problems, and I only have 500,000 peaches. How much are peaches going to be at the market? About 50 cents. The price is going to go up. So you've got good years and bad years. You know, this is called market flow. And if people decide they don't want peaches anymore, then the price is going to go down. This is a normal, healthy economy. It's a free market economy. The people set the price based on what they're willing to pay. Now, we got the Federal Reserve that comes in and says, hey, this bad years, good years, bad years, good years, that's got to stop. We want to have just like a smooth, steady, flow. So we're going to set up the Federal Reserve so that we eliminate inflation and deflation. Oh, really? Okay. So what happened in 1929? The stock market crash. I thought the Federal Reserve was supposed to fix that. I thought it was supposed to prevent that. Ugh. Okay? So let's talk about money. When we talk about money, frequently we refer to it as the blood of the economy. Excellent, excellent metaphor. Because it circulates. If I buy something for $1 and he buys something, he buys something, he buys something, and then they buy it for me, that $1 bill has gone around through all of us and basically is just an exchange. Just a placeholder. What happens if you have too much blood and your blood pressure goes up? Is that good for you? No. What happens if you accidentally slice your wrist and you start to lose blood? Is that good for you? No. There's a certain range. Too much is not good, not enough is not good. There's a certain limit in the middle where you need to have, in order to have a healthy body. Same thing is true of money. Too much or too little, and your economy is going to be in trouble. I'm going to oversimplify this, just so that, nobody can miss it. Let us pretend for the next 10 minutes that the only thing to buy or sell in the United States are bales of hay. Everything else you just kind of grow yourself. The only thing we're going to buy or sell are bales of hay. There are exactly 1 million bales of hay. There are also exactly 1 million paper dollars. How much is a bale of hay? $1. The dollar is worthless. It's just a representation of the bale of hay. So I've got my 100 bales of hay. But I've only got one cow. There's no way that my cow can eat all that hay before it goes, rotten. And plus, I got a little tiny apartment. I don't have a place to store 100 bales of hay. Where would I sleep? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell my 100 bales of hay, and I'm going to end up with $100. Isn't that great? So now, $100, I can put that in my pocket. I can carry it, or I can go home, open up the safe, put the money in the safe, take out my trusty rifle, lock the safe, turn on the security alarm, and sit on the couch all night. And I'm wide awake because I've been drinking coffee. I am just one wired so-and-so. And I'm going to protect my $100. Now, overnight, the Federal Reserve decides to print and distribute another 1 million paper dollars. So I wake up, the sun comes up, it's breakfast. Now there are 2 million paper dollars and still 1 million bales of hay. How much is a bale of hay?
50 cents.
Bale of hay is worth $2. Bale of hay is worth $2. I go into the safe and I bring out my $100. How many bales of hay can I buy? 50. So without triggering the alarm, without walking past me and my rifle, without even opening up my safe, the government has stolen 50% of my buying power. That is why inflation is evil. Because they're stealing from you and you don't even know it. How did we get into trouble in the first place? Why did we write the Constitution? Because each of the colonies was printing money. They were suffering from inflation. After World War I, Germany had a 5,000% inflation rate. Whatever cost you $1 in January cost you $50 in December. When I was a boy, my mother told me that you would walk around with a shopping bag full of money. Why? Because you're rich? No, because the money is worthless. It cost you $1 million to go and buy the groceries. And you say, oh yeah, but that was back, World War I. That's before my time. Ever go to Mexico? You go down and buy a hamburger and fries in Mexico, it's going to cost you 77,000 pesos. Oh my gosh, and you get your calculator out and you go, oh, that's $8. Why are pesos worthless? Because Mexico has been inflating their money. If you walk around and you see a peso on the ground, you don't even pick it up. It's not worth the time to bend over. Oh, but wait a minute, there's a washer on the ground. I'll pick that up because I may be able to use that. So it can't happen here. Ever since 1913, the Federal Reserve has been printing money, printing money, printing money. Where did it go? How come we're not knee-deep in dollar bills?
Federal Reserve, the IRS has been stealing
Because
it
they're
back.
putting it in on one end and taking it out every April 15th. What does it cost them to put it in? Nothing. They print the money out of thin air. And they put it into circulation. How do you get it? You work your butt off. You work hard. You go, okay, I've got it. And the IRS comes along and say, okay, we're going to take 40%. Thank you very much. The IRS does not pay for roads, hospitals, and national defense. It's a lie. They're just a vacuum cleaner to suck out all the paper so you don't realize that your money is any more worthwhile than Mexico's. And they've been doing it since 1913. If I have a bucket and I pick a hose and I start pouring water into the bucket, what's going to happen about 1 or 2 minutes from now?
Overflow.
It's going to overflow. Well, if I punch a hole in the side of the bucket and I'm standing here pumping water in and talking and just holding the hose and filling up the bucket, how long is it going to be before you go, wait a minute, how much are you going to fill up that bucket? How are you doing that? Doesn't it occur to anybody that that bucket should overflow sooner or later? How much money does the Federal Reserve have to pump in? How much money does the IRS have to take out before you go, wait a minute, something's wrong? We have to regain control of our economy. If we don't regain control of our economy, we are sunk. End of story. I'm going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and talk about deflation.